Thank you for your patience. And just as a preview, when we go to classrooms, it's very common that we have to wait 10-15 minutes to start because a lot of times, depending on the classroom, it takes that long for the students to arrive. Some classrooms start right on time, sometimes. So we arrive really early because we don't want to be the ones that they're waiting on, but we often have to wait for folks. So in a second, I'm Susanna Carranza. This is Valerie DeVille. And we also have Debbie Voss from the either board or off board League of Women Voters. Welcome all in person or in the app via Zoom. And this is the second installment of the First Vote training. It's similar to what happened on the 17th with, believe it or not, fewer problems. This time we actually got the screen working. So the way this is going to work, I'm going to try to get through the time so that we have time left at the end for more discussions. People are okay to ask questions during the presentation, but we're going to keep that like very short, like one question, 30 seconds, just so that you don't lose a train of thought. But because we want to have time for people to talk to each other and then, ask more questions, we're going to save that to the end so anybody who needs to leave can leave. So that's how we're going to run today. I'm going to present pretending that you are students. Yes, pretending you're students, but occasionally I'm going to have like a presenter's notes. I did bring a timer, but I don't know where I put it, so I'm going to wait without the timer.
What timer do you need? I can set one.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we leave half an hour at the end. Like it's supposed to finish at 8, so I want to be done by 7:30. So
Okay.
if I'm not through the chart that talks about voter registration by 7:15, just go late. And then we'll go through. We have a lot of volunteers this year, so I'm like super hopeful that we're going to be able to, I'm counting because I'm already double booking schools. So you have not to worry about being busy. There is going to be opportunities for everywhere. There are 2 or 3 that are already posted. There are several that are already scheduled, but they haven't been posted yet. And I'm going to show at the end who, like, if you're not already in the distribution list, if you attended this meeting, I'm going to add you to the distribution list. But there is also an interest form that I'm asking everybody who's attended or who's in the distribution list to fill out. And that interest form details what type of volunteering you're interested in doing and part of town that you're willing to travel. And there's some extra questions like different skill sets or if you speak a different language. There's a bunch of questions. This is kind of a long form, but it really helps planning because we need to have a pretty good understanding of what kind of volunteer we have. I didn't have in the form, but if anybody here happens to know American Sign Language, that would be awesome to know because we're currently not scheduled for a presentation, but we're working to go just register voters at the Texas School for the Deaf for their youth program, not their high school yet. So we're still trying to go to the high school. They do provide interpreters, but it would be nicer if we actually go with at least one volunteer that speaks signs. All right, so I'm going to start here. Anybody that's seen the presentation before is mostly the same, but there were some tweaks, some new things, a little bit of a new visual, but most of it is like the global content is the same, but we're trying to make it more interactive. And again, at the end, I would definitely ask for more suggestions on what can be interactive, and we'll go from there. And we're going to start.
Before you start, can I interrupt? Is there a way to tell the projector that you only want to see the first vote screen? Because otherwise I can't have the Zoom up at the same time. Or everybody here is going to see the Zoom also.
I have no idea.
Okay. Where's Debbie? Debbie, do you know if that's possible?
Yeah, you can do it in presenter mode.
You can pin it in presenter mode.
What am I doing?
Presenter mode, you go to, I think you go to,
Which app are you talking about?
to Google, to Gmail, the Google
The
Form.
slide.
PowerPoint?
Nope,
It's a
nope.
video.
That's
That's
one.
it.
That looks like it.
That's
Doesn't it?
Two quick questions.
Okay.
Susanna, are you gonna share the presentation at the end, and is this being recorded?
It's being recorded. The presentation is going to be made public at some point on the website in different ways, or anybody that signs up for volunteering. But yeah, like we make everything public. And
Do you want slideshow view, go to, up to the right?
No, the slideshow is going. What I'm trying to do is also hide the Zoom so that y'all don't have to look at the Zoom on top of the screen.
That's all we
I was
see.
thinking this
They
fine.
can't see it.
But I can't see the chat unless I pull it up on the screen, and then y'all are also gonna see the chat, and it's gonna block some of this presentation.
So I
So
say
that's what I'm
like-
talking about.
Yeah, let's not do the chat now. We'll deal with the chat at the end. Sorry, Zoom folks. And it probably could be hard to have a lot of time to chat in between anyway. So post the stuff on the chat, and we will deal with it at the end.
Okay.
Sorry, Zoom folks. That's fine. Well, all right. So let's try again. Can I go?
No. Yes, absolutely.
All right. And then
Shut
since we pause here in awkward pause, I'm going to do another part of the demo because that's right in the beginning of the presentation. And I'm going to try to stay there, but I forgot to grab this ahead of time. Okay. So starting in actual pretending I'm presenting. Hi, my name is Susanna Carranza. I'm with the League of Women Voters. And I hit that, or Valerie did.
No, I hit that because I was trying to get the toolbar.
Valerie hit that. She's not a very good helper. Just kidding.
It's not my computer, and I'm left-handed, and so everything is backwards, and I'm hitting the
All
wrong
right, so
thing.
this is not part of the presentation. This is like we know each other for way too long. So we spend too much time together. So I'm a volunteer with First Vote, and we have Valerie here, also another volunteer. We're here to help you all navigate your very first vote. The League of Women Voters has the history of started with the suffragette movement, but now everybody can come in. Just because it's called the League of Women Voters doesn't mean that it's limited to women, so anybody can join. And we love voting, and we want to make sure you love voting too. So the first thing we're going to do today, we're going to talk, give an overview. We're going to talk about power, the power of your vote. As much as it sounds cheesy, there is no power. Money. You can actually make money while doing civic stuff. And we're going to talk about that later. And if power and money are not enough, well, we have candy. First thing, and this is new for this year. Let's mingle. Find a partner. By the time I get to 0, I'm going to count 10 down to 0. By the time I get to 0, go ahead and find a partner. Remember, you're students. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. All right, so we are going to pretend that I actually did right with the timer. We're going to go and talk a little bit among each other, what you care about, or maybe what things you like to change. Just kind of discuss a little bit, and we're going to kind of bring it up at the end. And you have about 3 minutes. And then just watch the
So in the chat, why don't you guys go ahead and just write what are some issues you care about and what are some changes you guys would like to see in the chat. They can't see it, but we can see it. So.
I guess you can chat to each other about what you care about. I like how you practice about any. 1 minute left in the timer.
Yes. Nobody.
No. It's just, so Quincy, that's why I was like, okay, could you just,
All right, I'm looking at 10. The 3 minutes are over. All right, folks, let's see what you talk about. 3 minutes are over. In the real classroom, the volunteers, I will have the volunteers going around and kind of like, listening to the issues and taking notes so that we know what the issues are. But right now, like, let's see, like, can you tell the issues you're talking about? Like, can you, point out an issue?
voter suppression.
Okay, you got Candy.
My nose
And that
is
would be a
still
volunteer
uncomfortable.
getting it. Anybody else? Would you like?
I'll recap for 4 people. So,
All right.
we had climate change is a concern.
Okay,
Women's rights and reproductive rights.
okay.
Guns in school and funding of public education.
All right. Anybody else? Just 2 more people can say something.
Popular vote and women's reproductive rights.
All right. One more.
Yay!
You're hired. All right. So this chat is kind of getting in the way again.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up on my computer
Okay.
so that I can multitask.
All right, so while Valerie is going through the technical issues, one of the things that I'm doing a little different than we did in the past is that I really want to use the VDRs to help make everything more interactive. So in the classroom, usually when we go in the classrooms where they have the students sitting on either the round tables or now they have the hex set up, you would have the VDRs going around, like with maybe like an index card, and just kind of chatting up with the students and seeing like what they're talking about. Because then they can come out and come to me and then bring the cards. So when I get to the next slide, next couple of slides, I don't have to memorize all the topics that they talk about. And even if they didn't bring it out loud, I can echo.
I need to mute.
I need to mute my mic on my computer, sorry.
All right. Okay. So now that my assistant is learning her
Believe it or not, I am generally technically competent.
all right. So we're going to talk about issues in a second. Before we go there, I just want to point out that Texas has a lot of elections. And there's, like, you can see in March, May, and November, depending on the year, a lot of elections. So if you happen to be too young and you're not going to be able to vote in the November election, know that you're going to be able to vote again, like vote pretty soon. So just, your time is coming soon. And I don't want to go into details of all the different elections. We'll talk about November a little bit, but the other thing to notice is that there are a bunch of different types of elections. It's not just president or senator. There's a lot of local stuff. There are a lot of things on the ballot. In November, we have a lot. And that's when we talk about the issues that you brought up. Because the issues you brought up, sometimes there are things that are affected at the federal level. Sometimes there are things that are decided at the local level. And I'd like to use a silly example, and again, I would introduce a few of the issues that you talk about. But I also like to add things like, if you have a pothole in your street, who do you think you call? Do you think you call the president?
No.
Do you call the president? Do you think you call the governor?
No.
Yeah, you're right. You probably call the city, or maybe the county, depending on where you live. So, voting is very important. All elections make a big difference, but the elections that are local, the elected officials, they tend to have the biggest impact in our daily lives. Here is a question for Candy. We can't see here on this with the Zoom, but there is a little diamond on top that is a clue for the speaker that it's a candy slot.
There we go.
So if you see diamond, it's just a reminder of like use candy, opportunity for dance. Anybody here has any idea the percentage of people who voted in 2022 in the midterm, right, in the 2022 November election? Anybody has any guess? And guesses get candy, right or wrong?
Like in the US.
30%.
20%. 30%, 20%, yeah, percent-wise. 34. All right.
From the Zoom, we have 45%, 35% as guesses.
And here I'm talking about the percentage of registered voters. So just keep in mind that on average in the state of Texas, there's about 20% of people that are not registered. So if you look about total population, the number is lower, but then it's a little harder to figure out like if people are eligible or not. So it's not as low as some of you mentioned, but it's a pretty low number, like fewer than half of the folks voted, right? And that means that in a major election, midterms where we elected our governor, more than half of the population stayed out of it. More than half of the people who were already registered stayed out of it. But we're all stuck with it. So just sit with that for a minute. And this is just, if you don't like, the graphical things, you can visualize in people. Normally they come at the same time. But if you thought 46% was low, well, in the smaller local elections, it's pretty common to get 10%. Even elections that got a lot of news attention. There was a proposition that was really controversial or really got a lot of attention in Austin, and you still got only 10% of the vote. There are some elections that you got 5% of the vote. So if you think about it, in this classroom, right, 10% of the vote is just like that little group over there. Which brings up the next fun activity. And I can afford candy, we can afford candy, but pizza for all the students is a little hard. So this is a pretend pizza party. Don't get too happy about it. And this is how it works. We're going to all order pizza. It's going to be the same pizza for everybody. And the pizza already is the basic stuff. It already has the cheese and the tomatoes, so you don't have to freak out that it doesn't have cheese and tomato. It has that already. But each person will get to choose one topping as their extra topping. And each person can only choose one topping. So you can't go cheating and vote twice. It's just one topping. So follow what I'm saying for each one and kind of so that I can count it in. Who here would like mushroom as your extra topping? Raise your hand. Again, another outlier classroom. Keep your head high. Who would like pepperoni? Keep the hand so I can hand them. Who would like pepperoni? Put your hand on your head. All right. And then who would like pineapple? Go ahead and stand up as your topping. All right. I'm a pineapple person too. So, all right. So it looks like if this was an election that everybody voted, like that would be ideal, mushroom would win landslide. But this was kind of a local election, and because I'm in charge, I'm saying that just these folks here that, this part here that kind of had the pepperoni were the ones that actually showed up because, I'm in charge, so I decided who voted. And because of that, pepperoni won, and if you were vegetarian and that's why you chose mushroom, too bad, because you didn't vote. And I know it's just a pizza example, but this happens a lot in small elections. Only the people that are really passionate about things go and vote. And in classrooms, in high school classrooms, usually pineapple is the outlier, like that there's a few more than mushrooms, but the ones that, there's some classrooms, there are people trying to keep them from getting out. There's active voter suppression sometimes. In real life, this happens a lot, right? If just a few people vote, the results are dictated by the people who voted. And it's bad enough if it would be like a perfect representation of the of the classroom if it would be like a, you know, a random sample that really represented, but it's not. And I'm going to have another candy opportunity here and try to show who you think vote. And here we're going to show a description, a breakdown, who votes by age. And again, it's a candy opportunity here. So who do you think votes more? Younger people, older people, middle-aged people, or you can even say a number, like you can even give a specific age. Anybody has a guess of who votes more, if it's younger, older, middle-aged, or specific?
Boomers.
Boomers. Anybody else?
The consensus in the Zoom is older people.
And I'll get to that in a second. This chart here is the first chart. The first chart is that the people who voted. Just the people who voted without knowing anything about the population. If you look at each bar, it represents 6 years of age, right? Like 18 to 24, 25 to 30, and so on. And looking at this chart, there's not much of a trend, right? It just looks like, oh, just in the very end, there's not that many people who vote. But if you think about it, there's probably not that many people that are much older than 80. Now, keep your eyes on the chart, specifically on the dotted line. The hash bars are the people who can help with their hash.
Did not vote.
The people who did not vote, you get extra candy. And now looking at that, who can you see who has, like the groups that have high numbers of not voted? Yeah,
18 to 25 and 25 to 30.
it's you.
Well, up to 36.
Exactly, it's you. And so the bad news is that not enough young people are voting. But the good news is if you look at the big hash bars, you can see it as an opportunity, which means that every one of you here, if you start voting, you could make that bar shrink, right? You can make so that your vote will be represented, that you have, your voice matches your percentage of the population. And this is a way to look at that, just like if you prefer percentages. It's a little easier sometimes to visualize the people who voted divided by the people who could have voted. And you can see the trend is pretty obvious. If you're very young, your vote percentage, your turnout is in the 20s and 30s. If you get in the 60s and 70s, you pretty much vote almost as much as you can. So you're not leaving a whole lot at the table. And then in the very end, it kind of evens out, probably because there's more difficulty to vote if you're very old. So my question to you is, what are you going to do about it? And I hope that will be published.
Can we pause for a second? before we
Yeah.
move on to the next one?
And this is something new I'm trying, and I don't think I cracked this right, but I'm going to explain. So this is presenter's note, and I'm going to have something bigger at the end. So remember the bars that show like each vote. So each of the strings here is one of those bars. So in the beginning of the class, I would give, it would be something bigger that's more visual. I'll give one of those that kind of represents the bar to a few students and just tell them to hang on to it. And then when we come to this part, I would use a little participation for them to show what happens if you convert what's on the bar to the percentual representation of that. So I've been figuring, and if at the end, if somebody has creative ways of how we can make that work, I think now I have a plan, but this is the third iteration of my plan. If anybody is an educator that has any good ideas for props that I can distribute to the students, and then at the end, we can, not at the end, but at this time, we'll be able to make like a very big visual impact with a lot of participation from the classroom. I would love to hear feedback, but let's do that at the end.
Okay, quick question.
Yeah.
How do I mute all of our gallery? Because we just had somebody's voice coming out of there, and I am not seeing anywhere that I can do that.
It might be this.
I'll be on. Okay, never mind. Let me just say to the gallery that if you're on the Zoom, please mute your microphone.
All right, so can you get back to the?
Yep.
There should be. You should be.
I know there's an option for that. I just don't know where it is.
Because
And I don't want to
this is
waste any
my
more of your time.
Oh,
Our computer didn't have the right hardware, and then
Yeah.
and my computer is like using somebody else's computer. Okay, so back to the transition. So this is where if I can make work with the props, we would kind of do the charts and the props sort of in tandem. So you saw all the bars, and you have the power, but you have to use it, right? So this donut is a representation, like each of those bars were put as a slice of the donut, the way the people who voted. And the two that stand out are the 18 to 24 and 25 to 30. So combined is only 19% of the total votes. It's not like nothing, but it's relatively small amount. But there are a lot more young voters out there, right? You saw all the young voters that didn't vote. And this is the what if scenario that we did. What if all the older folks, everybody older than 30, continue voting the way they always have? We're not going to try to make their change the habits. But all the young people, all the hash marks on the other bar, start voting. You could have, like the entire Gen Z, folks under 30, could have about 41% of the votes in that 2022 election. And what I like to emphasize is that even elections that are considered landslides are usually not won by more than 20%. Meaning, at 41% combined power, if you decide to call the shots for every election, you can start right now in this next election and call the shots because there's enough of you to do that. So you have the power and you gotta vote. Now, let's pretend that I really convince you that you have power and you're super interested and can't go. How do you go about getting registered? Well, the first thing here in Texas, we cannot register to vote online. You have to register to vote on a piece of paper, especially the first time you're registering, you have to sign a piece of paper or go in person somewhere. But we are here today to help you, so it's your lucky day, because if you're eligible now, and this is the birthday they can have, like you can do 17, you can register if you're 17 and 10 months, and I always bring the birthday, like, if you're born on before, whatever day, I forgot today, what day is it is, October 28th, because today is August, right, August 28th. So if you're born on or before October 28th of 2006, you can register to vote today. And then one of us will help you. And this is the next slide. So I actually walk out of sequence. So what are the qualifications to vote? You have to be a US citizen. And this is presenter's note here. And I'm going to emphasize this, and if I hear somebody saying that in a classroom, you're going to hear from me. Do not ever, ever, under any circumstances, ask in the middle of the classroom. Please raise your hand if you're a citizen. Do not ever do that. Do not ever ask that question to a person in a group of friends. You use the form and show, can you fill out this? Can you check this box? Like, see this question here. Do not people put on the spot because you don't know if they can, you don't know their circumstances, you don't know if their friends can. If they're not sure, ask questions. And that's when I say, like, if you're not sure, we can talk to you at the end so we can try to figure out. But I always use the examples, right? You can be born in the US, or like me, I wasn't born in the US, I was born in Brazil, but I'm naturalized. So I can vote because I'm a US citizen. Or if your parents were naturalized when you live with them and are under 18, you automatically become a citizen. And we know that because we do naturalization ceremonies. And there are other ways that you might be a citizen. So if you're not sure, talk to us about it. And I just mentioned the 17 and 10 months, so here's the age. Then some presenters skip that, but I prefer they don't skip this part, the felony, because first, don't assume nobody in the classroom had a felony record, because as somebody pointed out, most people the first time they encounter law enforcement is like when they're 15 or 16. So do not assume, never assume the conditions of anybody. And also, even if nobody in the classroom has a record, they might have somebody in their family who does. And it's very helpful for them to know that in Texas, once you become off paper, you can register again. So it's each presenter can speak whatever way, but I ask you to not skip that question. That's not my question, but that. This, in the spring, we go through really fast because they might not know yet when they're moving, but I mean, the fall we go through very fast. In the spring, we take more time to explain because we might be helping students with their application to vote by mail as well. But in the fall, it's way too early. They're still applying for the schools. They're going to have a big election before they finish school, so there's not much of a benefit to dwell on it. We just kind of glance through and say, like, yeah, later, if you move, there are other things you can do. So it's just there for completeness, but we don't know. Once you're registered, you gotta actually vote, because remember the chart that we talked that 46% of the folks voted in 2022? Well, there were people that already registered, so registering is an important first step. But you still haven't used your voice, you didn't actually vote. And now that you are ready, the first thing that a lot of people, it's one of the most common things that people say that they don't vote is because they don't know what's on the ballot. They don't want to be an informed person. So that's why we use Vote for All in One. The league creates this document, this online system that also is available on paper, where you can find what's on your ballot and see questions and answers from the candidates. Sometimes we have temporary tattoo pins, and we write Vote for All in One in our arms for dramatic thing. And sometimes, if there's enough time in the classroom, we offer the students one. It kind of, you have to feel like it's your style, if it's the classroom style, you go for that. That's something that is just an option, like to use for dramatic effect. Like, we love Vote for All in One so much that we tattoo in our arms. Sometimes it works, sometimes it won't, but it's something. The other thing, you were talking to each other about issues earlier. Same thing with voting. You can make voting into a study group, right? Let's say there are 20 things on the ballot. Divide it up, and each of you research like maybe 4 or 5 things. You don't have to agree on what you're going to vote on, but if you help each other research, it makes it, less challenging to research. And also, don't worry about it. If there are things that it seems like too much, it's totally fine to skip some races. Just pick the things that you're passionate about and that you know, and the rest is totally fine to skip it. This is not a test. This is your voice, and it's totally fine to only use your voice on the things you know. There was controversy on using cheat sheet or not. I personally like to use the word cheat sheet. Sometimes the student asks, is this cheating? And I think it's good because it brings activity in the room. If you feel uncomfortable saying cheat sheet in the classroom, that's fine. But I think to me, cheat sheet is not cheating, it's just having your notes, right? So one of the things that people don't know is that while you can bring your phone, you cannot use your cell phone on the polls, at the polls. And anybody here knows why you cannot use your cell phone. And usually I kind of go like, anybody here knows why you cannot use your cell phone? Showing to the camera. And sometimes they get it right. But again, it's another opportunity for Candy. Anytime a student says something at all, Candy. The volunteers in the back, they can, if they hear a student just enough saying something quietly, candy because we want them to participate as much as possible. And if we can find even more ways that make it more natural for them to participate, I'm open for suggestions. We have a time limit, but if we can naturally find ways that incentivize that, that works. Sometimes we actually call the student to just kind of help us point things in the graph and kind of do things that are easy, right? It depends on the presenter in the classroom, but the more we change the focus from just the presenter, the more likely the students are to pay attention. So having collaboration with somebody in the back of the room, it's very helpful. So like right now, I'll get Bonnie on the spot, and she's going to be collaboration. No, just later, not now. And there's resources to find our polling places. It's a very handy website. You can vote anywhere in the county. We usually, if we know the polling places at a school, near a school, we usually bring that up. And the important thing is, did you know, do you think in Texas you can only vote on election day, or do you think you can vote other days? We can use that as an opportunity for game. So what do you think? You think you can vote election day only? Okay, can't. Yeah, you can vote early voting. So the cool thing about early voting is that then you don't have to worry if you get busy that day. You don't have to worry if you don't have a ride. And this year specifically, it's going to be much fewer lines if you go vote early. And now we're going to make a plan. Now I'm going to put Bonnie on the spot. I'm going to pretend to make a phone call. Can you pretend to answer it?
Yes.
All right. And I'm old school for
Hello?
Hi, Bonnie. How are you?
Oh, good. How are you?
Good. You want to go to the movies?
Sure.
All right. Bye.
Hi.
Okay. What is wrong with this picture?
This is actually how my teenager makes me.
There's no movie, there's no time.
Candy.
No discussion of
Yes,
it. Get there.
I finally know.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the same thing with voting. You say, oh yeah, I'm totally going to vote this year. But you didn't look at the dates. You don't know when the election dates are. Or you don't know if you have something on election day. You didn't put that on your calendar to make sure it's not a final. I mean, if a teacher gives you a final election day, sorry, but anyway. Yeah. So make sure you know when to go vote, how to get there, and also, do you know what you cannot wear at the polls? Anybody has any idea what you cannot wear at the polls?
Candidate shirts.
Yes, double candy for you. So yes, you can wear like just a plain vote shirt like this, but you cannot wear candidates or messaging linked to the parties. And this is a new SOS that they broaden the scope. It used to be just if it's not explicitly on the ballot, you could wear it, but now it's like anything that's known to be associated with a party or a candidate, you cannot wear. But if you forgot and you show up to the polls and you're wearing it, you have a few options. If you have a sweater, you can put your sweater on and zip it up. You can go to the restroom and flip your t-shirt. Or in Travis County, we have this awesome little paper clips that will give you the cover up if you don't want to go to the restroom. And trust me, nobody wants to wear that thing.
The other thing that they added in the Secretary of State thing, just
Yeah.
as an aside, is that includes past elections. So like if you wanted to wear your, Gore Lieberman shirt, that is also not allowed now.
Yeah, so they really broke. So pretty much, don't wear anything that's remotely, because that's a very new rule. That's going to confuse a lot of people. And well, after you went vote, right? Make sure you go vote with friends. It's your very first time voting. Make a big deal out of it. Go eat ice cream. Go have pizza. Presenters know. Do not tell them that they can go to places, show their stickers, and get free ice cream or free pizza for a few reasons. One is technically not legal. Two is we don't know who is doing that. There were some places that did in the past, and then people say, oh, you can go to that place and get it. And they were bombarded with people showing up with the stickers. It was like, we're not doing this. So don't tell them that. Just skip that part. And okay, so now you're all ready to go. So what's going to happen in the booth? Another presenter's note that Travis County has a mock system, like has a system that's dedicated to go to schools, and they're going to have mock elections sometime after deadline. I don't know if they're going to be able to go to all the schools, so the students will have an opportunity. In most schools, they will have an opportunity to go through that. So, did I skip the ID? I think I skipped the ID chart. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to get ready. I'm not sure why I skipped the ID chart. There is a chart that talks about IDs, and it's also an opportunity for students to know how to get ready, right? So in Texas, you need a photo ID, and there's several kinds of IDs. And maybe you don't have one of those yet. Maybe you don't have a driver's license or a Texas ID or that yet. But if you don't have one of those, the Lieutenant can talk to you at the end and show how you can vote. Because it's just an extra piece of paper that you have to work with, but we'll show you how you can do that. But if you have a Texas ID or even a driver's permit, or those things are valid IDs, or if you have passports, then you show your ID. If you don't have one, a coworker will help you through the steps, as long as you bring the different kinds of ID. One thing that is not allowed is something that you all have. What do you need when you go into school? Like, what kind of stuff you have here in your classroom that you need to go to get into school? What kind of ID? Student ID, right? So student ID is not allowed as a primary or even an alternate form of ID. So a student ID doesn't serve for that, or even your teacher's ID. So there are other IDs, but student is not. In Travis County, it's pretty cool that we vote electronically, but there is also a paper ballot for confirmation. And the next thing is the electronic system is a touch screen. So you go get check-in, you get a big long paper ballot that has a barcode, put in the machine, make your choices, you get a chance to review on the screen, and then at the end you print it. And if you're happy with everything in the printout, then you walk to the scanner, which is just a small computer on top of a big black bin, and you scan your ballot and get your sticker. But when you're looking at your ballot, before you put in the scanner, if you notice that you messed up, not in it. Because you can actually tell the clerk, and they will start the process over, they will cancel your ballot, and you can start over. So again, you don't have to vote if something is wrong, you can actually fix it. You have up to 3 times to do that. I've seen people doing once, I've never seen anybody doing twice. But just don't panic. Until you put your ballot on the scanner, you actually haven't voted yet. And that's when you get your sticker. And what I recommend people, go outside of the polls, go to the sign on side, take a selfie, and send to your teacher, because they are going to be very proud of you. And okay, you're ready. And you may have heard that we have some elections this year in November. All right, so you heard about the presidential elections, right? But remember that I said there's more things. So we can vote this year for the president, for Senate. We can vote for the Congress. We can have for local Senate and House. We can also vote for the Texas Supreme Court. And we can vote, in Austin, we can vote for mayor. And we can vote for school boards. And there are a lot more things there. We vote for judges. So there's a lot of stuff on the ballot. Again, if it's too much, you can research with friends or just focus on the things that you're more passionate about. And last day to register to vote is Monday, October 7th. But early voting is from the 21st of October through November 1st. And election day is November 5th. So let's get back to why your vote counts so much, right? Because philosophically, every vote counts. But in reality, it's not just philosophically. It actually, every vote counts often in many elections. We get very few votes that are the difference between who won and who lost. This is something that happens a lot in local elections. In 2022, District 9, which happens to be the district that I put, there was a difference in the runoff of 343 votes between the person who's actually now my city council and the person who lost. So this classroom here, not this classroom, but the senior class in this school has about 400 students. So because city council and schools are usually like geographically located, there's a really good chance that many of you live in the same city council district. So if you kind of got together, you could have influenced that election because it's really that few votes. And there's this other election that happened in the primary, and it's a county level election. So it's like, it's an even bigger population, right? Because the city council is like, it's maybe 100,000 people, but in the commissioner board, this is like the quarter of the entire Travis County. So we're talking about a 250,000 people that were decided by 248 votes. So each vote matters. And you probably know 200 people. So it's like you can easily influence the results of an election if you just talk to people. Okay, now is the fun part. Remember that I said there was money involved? And it's double fun because not only there's money involved, but if you're too young to vote in this election, you can still participate by becoming a poll worker and you get paid. And if you live in Travis County, you get paid $20 an hour. You get paid the same as the other clerks. So if you want to apply, there is this QR code. I brought the applications, and you need authorization from the school and the parent or guardian, but it's an excused day off of school. And it's great for your resume. And it's fun. And you work with people that have that already done that before, so they will you'll be part of the team and they'll help. And then if you're there, your friends will feel less intimidated voting, or your family will feel less intimidated. So that's a great way to participate, even before you're a year old enough to vote. And here, I like to finish with this one. If you're already 18, you can become a VDR. This is a volunteer deputy registrar. That's what we are. We are deputized so we can help people register to vote. There is no money involved in that, just bragging rights, but it's a great way to empower your friends and family and everybody in your life. So if you want, it's a simple, you watch a video, take a test, and you're done. And it's a cool way to participate. And now we're open for questions. And now we're going to go around and go register everybody to vote. And if you have any questions, we'll help you. Also, if you want us to text you a reminder, in the clipboard, we have an optional a white card that you give your information, so we can send you a text reminder saying, hey, early voting starts this day. Do you have any questions on where to find information? And one of us will be able to answer back. So we'll text you so you make sure that you don't forget. Yes?
I have a couple questions. So when you have this presentation, you do the entire presentation before you register, or you go to the registration part, register children, and then move on to the end?
So typically, we do the registration at the end. We only do the registration first, like in the middle, if we don't have enough time to do the entire presentation and register. Because once you start registering stuff, it's over. You can't go back to the presentation. It's like the presentation is lost.
Okay, so the plan is you do the
Yeah.
entire presentation and then register?
Yes.
Unless you're under a time limit?
Yeah, and then when we are like compressed time, we stop, and if we kind of have to rush through the end of the presentation, that's fine. But when we have the entire 60 minutes, we do that. It's preferable. But again, if your style of presenter is to interject, and that is fine too. It's just, it's really hard to get back to the presentation. One more question and then his, and then I'll go back to her.
So the second one, you talked about felonies.
Yes.
So what if you have a child that committed a felony in another state and moved to Texas?
It's the laws are the same. If they're off paper, as long as they're off paper, it doesn't matter where the felony was.
So if you're convicted in another state, you cannot go to
Yeah.
Texas.
It's like you're convicted. Because it's federal or state felony.
But if you completed information,
I understand that.
Yours?
I had a couple questions about like things it's okay to mention. Like, can we mention, like Austin Chronicle has a website with every election that has a lot of information. Can we mention like KUT.org, or do you need to just say local newspapers?
Local
or
newspaper.
radio?
Yeah, we don't want to mention any paper
Yep.
specifically, especially the Chronicle, but we just mention generically.
Okay.
And you brought the subject, like the students can bring any subject and say anything that sparks, and we cannot. So,
Right.
and we should try very hard to not
Right.
react when we are not there. Just
Factual.
okay.
Yeah.
That you were asking questions.
The voting figures you have, are those national or state?
The voting figures for their state in 2022.
And second question, what percentage of 18-year-olds are registered? Do you know that?
So that is hard to get. Oh, and so sorry. The by age, that is actually Travis County specific, because one thing that I learned the hard way, it's nearly impossible to find that information. You have to actually ask that information from the county at the right time, because if time has passed, they don't keep winning time data like that. So there's no way you would always kind of be looking at data that's a little outdated, because they have like dynamic voting files. So if you didn't actually download the voter files when the election happened, you actually cannot find age information. It was kind of frustrating. That one for it here. You, yeah.
Are you collecting the registrations or are they mailing them?
But no, you have to be a volunteer, deputy registrar to volunteer. You register on the spot. If they do not know their last four, if they don't know enough information to fill out the form, we give them a mail form. The problem is less than 10% of the people actually turn in. And if you're a high school student, it's probably like 1% turn in. So we only give a mail form if there's really no age, or if they're too young, that they are not eligible yet. But we also encourage them to fill out a reminder card, and we put a little mark so that we know in the reminder card that that person took a mail so that we can follow up and see if they're mailed. Because we can text them and say, hey, we gave you a mail form, did it have just a mail, and do you have questions about it?
So you're checking the registration before you
So we get them registered. We are not, like, sometimes the student thinks that they might be registered, so we help them look up if they're not sure. But we just offer anybody. So it's usually faster to just register than look it up. There's no penalty of registering twice.
If they skip something, you don't find out until
Oh, no. See, that's the thing. That we check I misunderstood your question. We make sure the form is complete. That's one of the reasons why you will see the signups, even if it's a classroom with 30 people that might have 5 that are maybe old enough, or 6. We will still have 2 or 3 PDRs, because it usually takes a high school student like 3 times as long to fill out the form than most, because they might not even know their address. They might know parts of their address, but they have to look up stuff. They might not know their driver's license, or social. Some schools let us go to the registrar office with the student and they look it up, but some schools don't. Sometimes the student knows that parent might know, so they text somebody. Sometimes they have in their phone, but it takes a while for them to look it up. So it takes a lot of hand-holding to register high school students. And it's particularly important that we make sure everything is complete, that we check all the boxes. So the specific things about the voter registration, that's something that we do in each classroom, a reminder for all the volunteers that you have to be extra careful when checking the voter registration for a young person, because they are not used to writing, to filling out paper forms. So it's very important. It's very, very critical that they understand the name they put there is their legal name, not their nickname. It's very critical that you can read their handwriting. If you had to ask for the right handwriting for them to spell their name when you're filling out the receipt, make sure before you give them the receipt, you actually write their name in block letters near the fields before. And then if you're new VDR, we can have that conversation on the side. But in high schools, because the failure rate for high school voter registration is higher than usual because they're not in the system yet, and they're more likely to provide somewhat incomplete information. So we want to be as complete as possible, and not be part of the problem. That was, yes.
All the groups of students gather, is it part of a normal class hour?
It depends on the school.
Or somebody that's volunteer, like after school hours?
So sometimes that's the case, but that is, like, the turnout is very minimal when you go after school hours. The most effective way that we try to get to all the schools is to go either to each classroom individually, or sometimes they get a few classrooms, all the classrooms of a given period, in the library or cafeteria. Those are effective ways because it's a relatively small group of people, so we can have one-on-one attention. In some schools, they would just call a big senior meeting, and it's kind of hectic. We usually don't get as many registrations, but it's better than not going. But definitely just tabling in the hallway or tabling after school, you get like, you might get 5 students when there's like 800 seniors, right? It's not worth it. A lot of people say, oh yeah, I'm doing this high school voter registration, but if you're not going to a classroom, if you're not going to a senior meeting, you're really missing the vast majority of the students. Yes?
So you will set these appointments up with the schools,
Yeah.
right? It's not up to.
Yeah, no, you
Okay.
just sign up.
And are the students notified in advance of the
We
expectations?
ask the teachers to do that, but most of the time, it doesn't always happen, and even if the students are notified, they might still forget to look up their information. So as a matter of practice, we always ask if the teachers can announce. But again, the amount of support we get depends on the school, depends on the teacher. And one of the things that I was telling the other group is, if you're going to be a first volunteer, the first thing you have is you have to be a very flexible person. And at the end of the day, if the situation is not the situation you expected, it's not about you, it's about them. So it's like, if you don't like that kind of uncertainty, if you think it's too much work, there are plenty of other ways to help register folks, because we are there to help the students. We are there to not interfere with the teachers.
We have several questions from the chat that I want to
Okay.
ask so that everybody can benefit from them.
Perfect.
The first question was, can students register to vote online?
No. Unless they already registered, they can change, but nobody can register to vote online. And that's part of the presentation.
But you can print your
They can
form.
print, like you can go online, fill out your form, click like a deceptive submit button, which creates a printout. Then you print, and then you sign, and then you find an envelope and a postage stamp, and then you mail. A lot of people do the first step and think they're done. We registered many people that say, I did the thing online. Say, well, did you mail it? Oh, no. So, no, you can start the process online, but you cannot finish. You have to actually print.
Okay, next question is, someone wanted to know if an Austin ISD transcript counts as a government ID, like as a List B ID. I doubt it,
I doubt it.
yeah, because it tends to be pretty picky.
But
Um,
for high schools, the easiest thing, if they're born in the US, they will have a birth certificate. And the other easiest thing is they register early enough, they're going to get their voter certificate. Those are the two easiest things for high school students. So if they don't have the other IDs, the first thing I ask, if you have a birth certificate, you can take that. So that's the most common thing for high school students.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Do you have to be a VDR to be a presenter?
Yes, and the reason is because you never know how many people are actually going to sign up as to be a VDR. So, and also because you want to be a VDR, so you know how to help. If you might get to new VDRs, you don't want to not know how to answer those questions. And it's pretty easy to become one. If you don't know how, just email me and I'll send you the link. Actually, if we can go back in the chart and see.
There's a
It's
QR code.
one, it's the chart before. Oh, there's more people.
Sienna, I thought you said there could be a group of us presenting that you didn't have to be a VDR, so
So,
people can present the
in
other people.
theory, you could, but it's like, why? So the idea is, we want everybody to be VDRs, also because they all know. Caveat, in a bind, if the only presenters available are not VDRs, I'll use the presenter because presenters are our bottleneck, but I really strongly recommend that every single presenter be a VDR, if nothing else, so that you go through the training and you know the rules, because you're talking about something. You're talking in parts of the process of things that are about voter registration, and if you're not a VDR, if you didn't take the training, you might even not know some of that. So even if you never want to register as in the classroom, you should at least watch the video and take the training from the county, just so that you know that part of it.
Somebody asked about the reasonable impediment declaration, because the link for that has been posted in the chat a couple times, and that was a conversation we were having about what do they do if they don't have one of these?
Yeah.
What do they do? You made an appointment to get an acceptable ID. That's quoted from the Texas law. But basically, one, the reasonable impediment declaration, yes, that is true. It is absolutely true. If you do not have one of what they call a List A ID, which is that list that had the graphic up in the corner, there's a List B ID, which can be a utility bill that's been mailed to you, a government check, an out-of-state driver's license, a couple of other things. But a student ID is not one of them. But a birth certificate or your voter registration card are.
And I have to, I accidentally removed a chart that specifically talks about voter ID.
Okay.
And so I'm going to put it back.
But yes. But I would always recommend that when you're explaining that to someone, you also mention that they will have to sign a second
Yes.
thing when they sign in to vote. It's a reasonable impediment declaration. There's like 40 things on there that they can choose on the screen as to what their reason is for not having an ID. And it's entirely up to them what they want to check, but tried to obtain and couldn't is one of the options. And with the delays at DPS right now, that is an absolutely valid thing for people to put. So,
And the
you know,
point,
that's-
one of
and then
the
it'll print out a
things-
little, in Travis County, it'll print out a little sticker that'll have the reasonable impediment declaration, and then they'll sign it, and then they vote.
So one of the things, so I'm going to bring back to the presentation, and I didn't notice that was missing, that chart, but we never talked about reasonable impediment declaration into the entire group. We just say, if you do not have any of this, when we go around talking to each one, ask and then talk individually, because it's too complicated to talk to it for everybody if a lot of the kids might already have an ID, even if they don't have a full driver's license. So usually that is best left for a one-on-one conversation. We just talk like, don't worry if you don't have one of those, we'll talk to you and how you can. And the way to know is like when you're registering them, if they don't enter a driver's license, you can say, do you just not know or you don't have one yet? And then that's when we have a conversation.
And then one last one from the chat. Wants to know how a birth certificate is verified because it has no phone number or address. And so when you're voting, and so I just wanted to address that your voter ID is to prove who you are, not where you live. And so if you have possession of your birth certificate, I'm assuming the poll workers are just going to give you the benefit of the doubt, they have to give you the benefit of the doubt that that is your birth certificate. It's really, at that point, that's part of why you're signing the reasonable impediment declaration, because that is an affidavit. It is, you are signing a legal document that says, I solemnly swear that this really is my birth certificate. So it's, and then you get into the penalties for that. And so it's a much bigger deal than just you show a piece of paper that doesn't have your picture on it and then you get to vote.
Also, can I address that? I just was at the office yesterday talking to the people at the Netherwell Spears building. Your address does not have to be the same as your voter registration address on any ID.
Yeah, you're
Correct.
ID address doesn't have to match.
So, and you can use an ID, a driver's license that's 4 years expired. So that's like something I'm really explicit on. My daughter just registered a young lady to vote yesterday, and her ID, her driver's license, said she lived in Williamson.
Yeah.
She doesn't live in Williamson. She lives down the street from me in Mueller. So she registered to vote in Mueller. She is going to vote in that precinct. Her card is going to be in that precinct. So when she shows up to vote, all she's going to do is show her driver's license that shows she used to live in Williamson County, and she can still vote in Travis County, no problem.
So I want to point out one thing that I use as a trick to make people remember that you can vote with a U.S. passport. There's no ID on the U.S. passport. So if you can vote with a document that doesn't have, you can't, the rule can't be this.
Several of the acceptable forms of ID do not have an address on them. Military ID from the U.S. military, the naturalization certificate does not have your address on it, and the passport does not have your address on it. Several of the other ones do, but there are plenty that don't. And so, like I said at the beginning of this specific conversation, it is to prove who you are, not where you live. The where you live part is proven when you register to vote. They send you your voter registration certificate, and if it gets delivered, they assume you gave them the right address. If it gets sent back, then they start asking questions, and you have to go through more steps. But that's the process. So you've already proven your address when you registered. When you actually vote, they're assuming that that's correct. If you show up and you have moved and your registration address is, like they will say, do you still live on, like, for example, I moved. Do you still live on Arrow Drive? No, I don't. I now live on San Diego Road. They could update it and it would be taken care of then. But that's the only time your address comes into play, is when the poll worker asks, do you still live at or on, and then they'll just give your street name, and that's it. You say yes or no, and then they go from there.
Yeah,
But there's no, like, even if your driver's license has a different address, they're not even supposed to ask, like, which one of these is correct. They're supposed to just ask what's in the system and then move on.
A coworker is not supposed to look at the address.
Yeah.
Like, you just ignore, you just look at the name.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yes?
What if, at any point in this presentation, do you ever address students that may have a physical or cognitive
So
disability?
only if there's somebody in the classroom that I could, like, we don't generically address, but only if there's some. And we do
accommodations
the-
that
yeah,
are available?
Yeah, we would, because also it would vary from the type of accommodation they need, so it would be too extensive to try to find all the accommodations. So if somebody asks specifically, or either a student or a relative, usually the teacher might bring up if that's the case with the student, but we don't generally do that. We do address language barriers. We have accreditation in Spanish, and in schools that we know there's a good number of students that speak Spanish, we either switch back and forth, or in some classes the entire presentation in Spanish. So that is something that we do. But yeah, the specific needs usually only when the question comes up.
But you do let them know that accommodations
Yes.
can be available?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we answer the questions, we just don't preempt that discussion if there's nobody in the classroom, because it's already so much information. If we start getting down in the weeds of all all the permutation, it's like we would be like 3 hours in the classroom. We don't have
You're supposed to rely on the school for equipment for doing this presentation, or how does that work?
So it all depends on the school, but for most schools, you bring your own laptop. So now, like in the past, because I didn't have as many presenters, I was willing to lend my laptop if I needed multiple presenters. I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. So if you sign up for a presenter, you can bring a buddy. If you're not tech savvy, bring a buddy with you that can do that. That's totally fine. I don't have the bandwidth this year to coordinate technology. If you come as a presenter, I assume you come as a whole. Some schools, we just email the presentation to them ahead of time. Some schools, we bring the laptop. Some schools, we give a thumb drive. It really varies, but I always assume that you need to bring a laptop unless otherwise specified. There is one school like WISE, there is no way for us to connect the laptop, so we always send the presentation ahead of time because there is this a built-in projector. So we would be pretty difficult, but vast majority of the schools, they have that, the TV, the big TV that you just kind of go and plug and make sure that if you don't have a direct plug for a HDMI, that you need a little adapter, or if you need help with that, you can ask me ahead of time, but you have to be able to connect to an HDMI cable. That's
Another question from the chat is, why is student ID not allowed? And
Well-
I'm going to address this. There have been attempts at the Texas legislature by different representatives or senators to introduce it as a valid ID, but that has not passed. So the list is it's prescribed by the legislature, what is acceptable and what's not, and it can't be changed without a bill being passed in the legislature and signed by the governor.
Side note on this, when I have that chart of, I'm gonna put it back, the chart about ID, I even mentioned this is something that is decided by the legislative, it's decided by people we voted for. So if you don't like that rule, or if you like the rule, the way to change or keep it is voting. So I usually use that as a catch, and again, it will be in the presentation.
Oh, and I wanted to comment on something somebody mentioned earlier when you were talking about students being able to vote like on election day because they were, whatever. And somebody said something about, well, they'll have the day off. In Travis County, that's not true in every school district. Del Valley ISD, I know for a fact, did not close on election day. It is 7:30.
Okay, so we're doing good because we are in
Yeah.
the discussion part.
But yeah, so there are ISDs within Travis County that do not close on election day. So that is not always necessarily true. Plus, there's more elections than just the
Yes.
November one. There's also all the ones in like the primaries and the stuff in May, and if there's special elections or runoffs or whatever. So you can't assume that they will have the ability to have the day off. There is one weekend during early voting. I try to emphasize that with younger people. But yeah, that it's not actually 2 full weeks of early voting. It's a Monday through the following Friday, because there's a 3-day gap between the end of early voting and election day.
Yes.
I don't know why I ask these questions, I know the answer to. I presume we cannot at all mention the existence of voter suppression, which would be so compelling to young people. They don't want you to vote, so you should vote. So I assume we can't talk about that.
Yes, carefully. Like you can, so we can, because the league advocates for making it easier to vote,
Right.
we can talk in general terms about making it easier to vote, and then how some of the rules, some things make it harder. But it's like the part where you can talk about is when you're talking about the turnout, right? If you don't like who is there, you think you don't vote because you don't have power, but we show you have power. So this would be an opportunity that you can gently talk about that. So people get discouraged from voting because they think their vote doesn't matter. Because that in itself is a form of voter suppression. But you have to be careful of going too deep into that to not really turn parts in. But in general terms, you could. You just can't. Like we never name names.
Sure.
But in general terms, like if you don't like election laws, people who we elected make the laws. A way to change election laws that you don't like is voting different people for different people. And depending on how engaged the classroom is, you can talk about how the folks in the Texas House and Texas Senate, they're the ones that make the laws about elections in Texas. So it really depends on what's on the ballot, and those are things like, I don't put that in the presentation because that's something I'm deeply comfortable speaking about, but most presenters are not. It's just like I spend so much time on the ledge, but I don't want to put that as a requirement in the presentation because I don't want people to speak about something that you need to have a knowledge so far beyond that, then they're going to spread misinformation. So we don't want that. There are speaker notes in every slide, in each slide, even a suggestion of how much time to spend on it. I forgot to I bought timers for each kit, and that's the other thing. We have kits that have all the materials that a person needs. And when there is a sign up, there's a person that's the lead for the school for the day. That person will bring however many kids are required for that school. If it's a school that's only one classroom or the students in the library, it's only one big kid. If it's a school like Wise in Pflugerville, that we have to go to 2 or 3 classrooms at the same time, there's like 3 of those, and there is a person in charge of making sure that each volunteer knows where they're going. And so one of the things people can volunteer with is be the lead for the day. And the lead for the day can also be a presenter or a VDR, or just be the lead for the day, because in some schools that's enough of a job. So you can greet other presenters or lead them. So there are many opportunities, and there are other things they can do behind the scenes, because we get the reminder cards and we enter that information. Right now, I'm the only person that enters that information because I don't want to willy-nilly get that information to everybody. But it's like if there would be a small team that could, because we don't want too many hands on that. But if there's a small team of people that's really interested and is very familiar with spreadsheets, and like I definitely could use the help. And there is like when it gets close to election, we're going to have people texting the students. So there's a bunch of other things besides being in the classroom.
What about the candy?
So the candy we provide,
It's literally in the kit. You are given everything. You're given the candy, you're given wristbands with the Vote For One and the league address on it. You're given stickers, you're given, these are bookmarks that have all the information for them to follow. It's got a list of the available ID. It has, where's the list of ID? There it is. And then it even says voters without any photo ID listed above may use alternative IDs. It has the Vote Travis link. It has the Vote Texas link.
We have some in Spanish.
It says your address on your ID and your voter record don't have to match. Your ID can be expired up to 4 years. If you're 70 or older, it can be expired for any period of time. So I mean, it's got a lot of information in one little tiny piece of paper that you can literally fold it out and stick in your wallet. So you will be given those too. The applications are all in the kit. A folder to hold the applications once they're completed is in the kit.
And usually
clipboards
the
are
lead-
in the kit.
The
Pens
lead
are
for
in
the
the
day
kit.
will take care of all the applications.
And then take them over back
Yes.
to you or take
Either
them
to
the
me,
office?
like, yeah, we will arrange different things depending on.
That's true of any league event, even
Yeah.
it's not first vote, is that if there's an event lead, it's their job to figure out how the forms are getting where they need to go. That doesn't mean they necessarily have to do it themselves, but they need to make sure that somebody is doing it and who's doing what and when.
And if you live or plan to volunteer in the northern parts of Travis County, please go to the Williamson County website and request reciprocity. All you have to do is email them your Travis application and fill out a form, and then we'll email you reciprocity. It's like you are always going to run into some students that are from Williamson County, and it helps is meant to have as many of the volunteers that can do it.
I have several more questions from the chat. One is, if you're interested in particularly helping at a particular school, is that possible?
You can just sign up for that.
Yeah, it's not just a general sign up for first vote. It's each individual school is going to have what times everything's happening and which school it is and all of that.
Bring
So you'll be
the
able to-
events page
Oh, yeah. I know how to do that.
I'm not sure.
Hey, none of that.
Yeah, because I never go to the
Okay.
website, it's not like the
So if
number
you go
one
to,
recent search.
if you go to the event calendar, this is really obnoxious having Zoom be on the same screen. If you go to the event calendar, you will see that voter registration at Alamo Slaughter. We don't have anything scheduled for first vote, but
Yeah, we do in September.
I know, that's why we don't have anything scheduled for first vote in August, so I'm going to go to September, where you can see that all first vote opportunities show up on this calendar in yellow. So, and it has the name of the high school. So if you want to do Pflugerville High School on September 10th, you click here, and it takes you to the sign up for that day at that school.
So we don't even need to wait for your email necessarily.
Yeah, you don't have
Right.
to wait. I send email out of, courtesy and to kind of, I get more hits when I send email. But if you refresh that page often, you get first dibs.
Yes.
Where's the time slot on this one? I don't see
Oh,
it there.
just have to scroll down.
Sorry. I am left-handed.
It's
This is not my
a touch screen.
computer. I know, it's just, okay. So this has the time slot right here, 8:15 to 2:15. If you're a presenter, 8:30 to 10:30, co-presenter, VDR. There was also a question in the chat about whether you will be paired with somebody who knows what they're doing, whether there's a team, all of that. And this should give you an idea of this is how many people will be at any given thing. How many volunteers typically go to classrooms was another question, and that typically depends on what size the school is, but this is a pretty standard group. You want multiple volunteers to do the VDR stuff because you only have a limited period of time at the end of the classroom to do that, so you kind of need everybody working at the
In
same
a
time.
typical 30 students classroom, you have a presenter and two VDRs.
And the co-presenter, if it's your first time and you are not comfortable just watching Shoshana do this and then running into a classroom, you can be a co-presenter, and that is essentially a training session for you. So you can sign up for that, and that is your job while you're there, is just to learn how to do the presentation.
Also, even if there is not a explicit co-presenter there,
Yeah.
if you want to go to a school that that the slots are filled, you can definitely ask me and just come and watch it. That's totally fine. We don't want to overload with too many volunteers, because also we want the volunteers to have stuff to do. But if you want to use that as a more hands-on training, that's totally fine. And again, if you're not tech savvy, but you have a buddy that is, you can sign up as a team, so that a person, your friend, or helps you with the technology, and you just focus on the content. That is fine. I'm not going to arrange that.
And then
But also, please let me know if you're doing it.
somebody else wanted to ask if you should take the VDR training before you go do anything in a
Yes.
classroom. And yeah, that's been answered previously, but maybe they missed it. Yes,
Yeah.
you should be a VDR before you go. And the process is you can do the training online, and they will email you your certificate, usually within a day, but definitely within a couple of days.
And if for the general public, if they didn't take the first vote training and they don't plan to present, they don't have to take it. But I recommend, because it's such a different environment, that is a good idea to watch the video, even if you put on double speed, just so you can see what to expect. But if you're going to be a presenter and you haven't presented with first vote before, you definitely please watch the video and come to a classroom, volunteer as a VDR first, or just co-present, because then you develop your own. You want to stick with the program, you can make it your own, but you don't want to go completely out of whack, right? You don't want to completely skip stuff. If you're not very comfortable talking about statistics and the turnout, you can just show it how it is. You don't have to get in the weeds of it, but there's enough information there that if you study the notes, it should help you how to tell the story.
Where online can you get the presentation?
So it's not online yet. It's, yeah, so the video is going to be online and the presentation is also going to be posted, but it's not there yet.
That is actually a question from the chat was, can we get an email with a copy of the presentation, a link to the resources, and a link to the calendar?
Yeah, so I'm going to send an email to not only everybody that's here, but also everybody that is already in the mailing list. Like if you're not in the mailing list, I will also include, please join the mailing list, because otherwise, I guess I might maybe enter you. I haven't figured that out yet. But I'm going to send a follow-up that's going to include a link of how you express your interests and your, all your contact, whether you attended this training or the 17th training, because I don't know who's filling out the form, right? So I know who attended here, but when a person fills out the form, I don't want to have to go cross-check 5 different things. You fill out the form, put all the information there, and all at once. Because one thing that people completely don't underestimate is how much work there is in the background to make this happen. It's great, it's a lot of fun, but this is going to be a crazy busy year. We already have most of the days with 2 schools scheduled. There's going to be several days likely towards the end that we're going to have 3 schools scheduled. So I do not have time to babysit and monitor. So it's like, I'm usually super accommodating,
Yeah.
but I just do not have time.
Well, and when she says to the end, we're talking October 7th, not election day, but
Yeah.
October 7th is the goal because that's the deadline to
So we have
register
like
to
4
vote.
weeks.
So yeah, so it's literally we're trying to create what normally goes on in a semester into
4 weeks.
4 weeks. So it's a lot of schools, a lot of places, a lot of days.
So I just don't have time.
Is the calendar of dates going into which schools?
Yeah, so that, just go to the calendar, like if I create a sign up, it goes there, boom, it updates immediately. Because
And is it going to indicate which schools it would be useful to have?
so it will say on the sign up if it's Spanish required, yeah.
Required.
And when you fill out the interest form, and if you say that you're a Spanish speaker, I'm definitely going to ping you and say, hey, this school could really use volunteers. Like Navarro, I think is already there. Navarro, there's 4 sessions
Okay.
that 100% needs
Yeah.
Spanish.
Something else to point out on this sign up is that once you're at the sign up for one school,
Oh yeah.
we've only have 3 scheduled right now that actually have the sign-ups up. But once you're on that page, there's tabs up at the top, and you can just switch between the different schools. And that will say, like, where's the one that says, presenter Spanish. So it will be very clear when you're signing up, like, what it is that's expected of you.
And we have the presentation in Spanish from last semester. I'm just about to update, it's very similar, so I just need to update a few slides so that this gets the complete Spanish version. But definitely Navarro is already easy, and I haven't, the teacher hasn't discussed yet if all the presentations on the Spanish part will be full presentation in Spanish or just be presented in English, but have the bilingual contact so that we go through. So we have done both ways because sometimes there are students in the classroom that don't speak Spanish, depending on the class. So there are some classes that are all Spanish speakers. There are some classes that are mixed. So we have to accommodate that. But Navarro in general is a good school to always have Spanish speakers as VDRs. At least one. Probably, I didn't put that in all the slots I might modify on, but Navarro is a school that the population is a really high likelihood that people will go.
And there was a question in the chat about a specific high school, but yeah, just because the high school is not on the list right now does not mean that it's not going to be. This literally is just like the initial, there's 3 right now, but there's a bunch in the works. So if it's not listed now, it will probably be listed soon. And if you have,
So here is the, if you're talking about a specific high school and that high school is Lake Travis, Lakeway, Lago Vista, or Vanderbilt, please reach out to me because I don't have a contact there, or even Wesley, because those are not in the work.
But
Because
Austin ISD,
Austin
just
ISD
about
is for the-
everybody
By and large,
is going to happen.
except McAllen.
McAllen
Oh.
is gonna happen, I'm gonna be.
It's going to happen. McAllen,
That's actually the high school that was asked about, so I'm glad that you clarified
Yeah,
that,
I know.
because, yeah.
it's like, we've been there before.
Yeah, I mean, I did voter registration on picture day.
Yeah,
there
no,
at
that's the
McAllen.
thing.
But yeah, but they
they're
don't want
all
the-
cool about inviting for
Yeah,
other
they don't want the
things,
presentation.
But getting, so, but we're going to make it happen.
Awesome, excellent. And so if you have contacts at those ISDs, or if you want to be added to the mailing list, please don't just stick the information in the chat, actually send it to Susanna.
And I'm going to send the follow-up. So
Yeah.
in the follow-up, when you write what parts of town, I think there's another part, you can list specific things. So there, like, most of the questions have the free form that you can, like, there are multiple choices, but you also have the free form that you can write. So you can use, so if you want to send me a specific note, don't email me the note. Use the interest form.
Okay,
At least like for right now. Like in the future, yes, but for now, just wait. I'm going to, like, tonight or tomorrow, I'm going to send everybody an email, follow-up email with interest form. So just look at your spam to make sure it doesn't end up there, because it will be a combination of BCC or Club Express. I'll probably, for now, I'm going to send separate emails, because I hope most people sign themselves up to the mailing list, but then in another week, anybody who didn't sign themselves up for the mailing list, I'll go manually add. But again, did I mention that I'm busy? As much as you can prevent me from having to do manual work that can be easily done by just filling out a form, that would be super appreciated, because I still have to contact some schools, and even when you're talking to school, usually takes like 4 or 5 emails to get the details of the schedule, how many students are going to be there, where are going to be. So it's a lot of stuff that happens in the background. Yes?
How do we sign up for the mailing list?
So yes, I'm actually going to send that on the follow-up email. But if you go to the LEAD website, it's if you are not a member,
literally,
go
add me
the-
to the mailing list up here in the
Yeah.
right-hand corner.
If you're already a member, then you select either the mailing list or the interest, and then you get added.
And then there's an option right here for first vote volunteers. So if
And
that's
if
what
you
you're
want to
interested
do
in,
also regular voter registration, you
Yeah.
can, it's the same mailing list.
or get out the vote, I mean, which is like the texting program that she's talking about, where we follow up with people, all of that stuff. You can indicate that interest right there. You must be logged in, because it seems to think that I want to edit the page. Sorry. Anyway,
This
I
is
just
sort
wanted
of
to
like in that.
okay, yeah, we don't have any more questions in the chat. There are a lot of people thanking you for the presentation and saying what an awesome, great job you're doing.
Yay!
All in favor, everybody.